Hey everyone, this is Chris, and you're listening to One Cross Radio. And today we are joined by the always awesome and lifelong friend Christian Dobson. Christian, how you doing today?
I am doing fantastic. How are you doing
Good.
today?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. It is day, I think, 4 of the quarantine.
Ooh.
So that's been interesting. Working from home has been interesting. But that's not your experience, actually. So
No, my experience is going to work. Oh, wow. No, my experience is the worst. You really, can I tell you? Can I go into detail? Do you want to hear it?
yeah, sure, sure.
Oh, right. This is awesome. I have a captive audience. So, uh, no, it sucks, man, because like they're trying, they sent this letter saying, oh, we don't want to lay anyone off. And I'm in the position where I even said to my boss, I was like, hey, man, if you don't want me to come in and also not pay me, that'd be great. I'm fine with that. And, if you just want to like lay me off or whatever, you can just do that. That's fine because because I don't want to work there anymore. But we're doing rotating shifts. There's only 4 guys that work there, rotating shifts. So 5 days on, 5 days off. So right now we still get paid for the 5 days off, which is pretty cool, admittedly. But I have to spend the entire day working with the one dude in that branch that I really, really don't like. So I get 7 hours of unadulterated time with them, which is fantastic. Oh, and by the way, there's no work to do whatsoever, and we're close to the public. So
So wait, what are you doing?
I
Like, what?
feel like I'm losing my mind.
All right, that's fair. Um, it's been
Whoa,
it's
wow.
been weird. Sorry, you might have cut out. I just
Yeah,
heard.
no,
I think I'm losing my mind.
yeah, no, that was it. That was the end. Yeah. That was-
Oh, okay. No, that's got to be fair. Like it's been interesting for me working from home, just because so much of my job has been based on like the work I do with the youth, with the clients, and the walk-in and all that, and I don't have that right now.
Hmm,
So it's been like, oh, okay, I gotta find. At first, I was like, what am I gonna fill my time with? But there is legit a number of things to do, especially because as I shared with some viewers, come uh, March 31st, like my contract's up, and then we're just trying to set up our agency to be able to succeed with able to like still assist youth with housing in a different way. So it's finding all these resources and making sure there's clear cut stuff to help out, and then even doing some other stuff where it's like, okay, if we need to refer anybody to shelter, let's look for shelters outside of Hamilton, and
hmm,
then arrange them really well, and then make sure you get the directions and how to get someone there. Just setting them up to succeed. It takes a lot,
yeah.
but I'm like, oh dang, it's actually filling my time, and it's not like I'm wasting my time either. So
Well, I mean, it's good that you can work from home. That's really interesting that so many people seem to be able to work from home, and it feels like there's a huge push to keep people from doing that, right? Like, oh, we want you in the office, and we need you here this many hours, and I mean, regardless of a pandemic, I don't know, man. I don't know about you. I feel like like I never have enough time. Like I never ever have enough time, and like not only do my health is suffering, my mental health is suffering. The things I want to do with my life, like I want to make art, I want to do yoga, I
mm-hmm.
want to exercise, I want to figure out who I am, I want to, I just want to, all this stuff, and like I just don't have any. All my time and energy goes into getting to work and coming home, and I keep thinking like, heck, man, there's so many countries that have at times in their history gone down to like a 3-day work week for whatever reason, right? Maybe it's oil
Right.
shortage, things like that, and things worked fine. uh, you know, uh, when you're looking at, the Dow going up 3,000 points based on nothing, we didn't acquire any more natural resources. And no extra infrastructure was built. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
so where's all this wealth coming from, and who is it going to? Because it's definitely not going to the workers, right? I think if they're gonna fleece us to this extent, they should give us another day off. I don't want to work 5 days a week, man. Give me 4. Like you just keep breaking the laws, keep paying $0 in tax, keep doing whatever you want. Just give me my extra day off, or give me my extra money. Just give me something. Give me.
Right. Right.
Uh,
I'm actually really curious, just because your comments just reminded me. what's your opinion on how the Ontario and federal government are kind of handling things right now? So far, they've been rolling stuff out, and I haven't been a fan of either Ford or Trudeau for the most part. But
Hmm.
I gotta say, both of them, um, with how they've been presenting stuff, like they haven't been jumping into overreaction mode,
Yeah.
but they also haven't gone into like insane defensive mode either, being like, nope, we just got to persevere and push through. Like they're handling it in my opinion, I'm like, wow, they're handling it very well. I can't be like, well, Ford, you're acting like Ford would normally.
Yeah, I think people are so scared, like it's and Canadians are less susceptible to this, where they know that if they politicize it, or if they're even viewed to see, if they're even like, if it even seems like they're politicizing it, nobody's going to go for that. Nobody is going to support them if they're seen to
Right.
be doing it. So I think they're both responding in the manner in which like if you were to like copy and paste a politician type of thing, where it's like, okay, they're going to listen purely to their advisors and they're going to do exactly what the professionals say, and no matter what everyone's, oh, like politics be damned, we're like, I'm gonna keep my job by listening to professionals, and at the very end I can say, hey, I listened to the best people I had. What else was I going to do? You know.
Kind of makes me wish that they do this all the time.
Oh yeah, Chris. It's almost like we do have the data to be able to do this all the time, and it's almost like anyway. I mean, that's enough. That's okay. Here, let's put a pin in that. Money in politics. There's 3 episodes we could do. Oh man. Oh dude. There's so man. The more I learn about the world, the more I'm just like, oh, I don't want to be a part of any of this, man.
uh, oh, I get you, man. It's like, all right, I'm trying not to go too deep into it, just, but like I find a lot of this stuff like really interesting.
Mm,
And then I like learning about other countries and then seeing what they're doing and how it's succeeding. But I generally try to give people the benefit of the doubt, right?
mm.
So even if it's even be it a politician, a political party, or someone else, I try not to jump into the woods about it. And I know you and I have talked about like we'll put a pin in this one, but like, is the DNC hanging Bernie out to dry again, kind of thing?
Oh, dude,
Like,
when you sent me that message, I was like, Chris, yes, dude. Why is this even? Of course, it's like, look at, okay, right before Super Tuesday, two of the top delegates drop out, and then one you haven't heard from in like 3 or 4 months is like all of a sudden, oh, by the way, I also support Biden. Go, and dude, and obviously I cannot get blue on this podcast, but it steams my hams when it's between the mainstream. Man, there's this one guy I read it. He posted like 25, 50 examples of every time the mainstream media would put like Bernie down, where they'd be like, oh, here's the top 4 candidates, or no, they would show the top 3 candidates, but then it'd be like Biden with 16, Bernie with 15, Warren with 13, and Buttigieg with 10, but they would only show Biden, Warren, and Buttigieg. And it's like, but the guy in second place isn't there. Why are you not showing him? Just all these little things like that, dude. Like remember when CNN
yeah.
was like, oh, can we beat can Bernie Sanders or the coronavirus be beaten? Like what? What? What are you talking about? And
Well,
and the same people who own these corporations that all like these multimedia corporations, those same people have vested interests in health insurance companies and seeing the status quo remain the way it is, and it's just so it's so sad to see the only person who's trying to do the right thing get shafted because the people are so stupid. They're so cowed by their what are their overlords? Their what is the word? They not kleptocracy, the oligarchic, yeah, oligarchic overlords. We're serfs, dude. We're serfs. You know, like when you look at this, the average CEO wage has risen 900% in the past 35 years, and the average worker raise has risen like 56. Like, how are we not serfs, man? This isn't right.
so the point I was originally trying to make
What?
was I was like,
You were making a point?
I try, like I was saying, I try to give people the benefit of the doubt, and then
Yeah.
I was like, I didn't want to go into the woods. But the thing is, with it was kind of funny because when I sent you that message, at first it was like people were like, "Oh, we don't want to go into the woods. Like there's no conspiracy." But in the case of this, I'm like, "No, this isn't conspiracy. This isn't you forcing a view. Like this is demonstratable." The stuff against Bernie, where I'm like, "That's not in the woods." At this point, this is fact,
That's fact.
especially because it's been leaked and pointed out and documented. Like this has happened before.
Yep. Yeah.
But the original point I was trying to make was as we look at stuff that works in other countries, but there's hesitancy to do it here, like here in Canada or here in North America.
Mm.
Like, my personal attitude is I try not to automatically be like, well, that's because of like corporate greed and all that. I actively try to find out before getting to that point,
Hmm.
like just jumping to the, well, it's corporate greed or whatever. It's like, okay, so what is your actual viewpoint? Like, why do you feel this wouldn't work here? Is it because of different population factors, or in the case of Ontario, it's like, okay, well, that country is one country. It's not a bunch of provinces with different provincial governments and all that level
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Well, okay, like, are we talking about the implementation of healthcare, or what are we talking
Oh,
about?
no, no, no. Right now I'm speaking in vague generalities on purpose because I don't have a legit example.
Okay, okay.
Um, yeah, no, no. I just mean that's my process in general. But then I can't remember how I got here. I'm so sorry.
Oh, okay, because you sparked something in my head. I just realized because a lot of people make the argument that like, oh, because Bernie is talking about Medicare for all and how it's going to end up saving the United States a bunch of money. Even like I'm not an economist, but all the people who do know what they're saying have said this, right? Like it may take a
Yeah,
while, and obviously, like the healthcare insurance industry is going to suffer greatly. But I think we have to make the decision, and it's very difficult for a lot of people to wrap their minds around this. Where you can say, "Hey, we've done it this way for so long, but maybe people's healthcare shouldn't providing healthcare for people shouldn't be motivated by profit." Like that doesn't. It seems like a counterintuitive thing. It doesn't make any sense in the world at all. Like,
oh, I'm 100% on the side of Medicare. I mean, in Canada, we enjoy it, or I'd say a slight version of it, because as much as everybody's like, oh, hey, it's free healthcare, I'm like, well, it's in our taxes. There's trade offs, but it's a system I enjoy. There was a couple months ago, and I ended up telling you guys about it. I can't remember if I've talked about it on the podcast,
hmm,
but I was going in for just a stomach test because I've got stomach issues.
hmm,
And that day, when I got to the hospital, they were checking my pulse, and everything, and they're like, "Your pulse is really high. Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, no, I think I'm good." The night before, I just had some like pain in my arm,
hmm.
and then they were like, "Are you all right?" And I mentioned that, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, okay." We'll keep you monitored. But long story short, they were concerned. They were concerned I was having a heart attack.
Yeah.
Um, and then that day, like I had MR, not an MRI, but something for my stomach. But then I got sent from one hospital to another. They're like, you need to go to Emerge. Um, like just be safe, just be sure. And everything ended up being fine. It was just a lot of stress. I was under a lot of stress, and it was just coming out that way.
Yeah.
But I was in the hospital basically for like 10, almost 12 hours that day. And the amount of tests I had done, I was so thankful afterwards that I didn't live in the States.
Well,
And that's not to, I hope it doesn't seem like I'm picking on them. I have some friends who are down in the States who right now have, they're dealing
you're
with,
not,
they're dealing with the bill.
dude. You're not picking on them. You want them to be treated like human beings, and you don't like that
Yes.
they're being lied to and manipulated into to believing that if they were to be given free healthcare, that would for some reason make them bad people or hurt the country or something.
Yeah.
I
I
man,
was I was just very, I guess what I'm trying to say is like not pick on them, but I don't want it to come across as like, oh hey, let me brag about this situation when you're in an unfortunate one. That they're still finding many, that to their credit, to their like, they're still finding many blessings in, as much as it's like, no, that's a financially stressful situation. But at the end of that day, I was just like, oh my gosh, man. Like I'm so thankful that I didn't have to deal with that, where I'd be like, Jill and I both were realistically like, we'd lose the house.
Chris, yes,
Like,
yes, dude. No, no. When you in the States, when you have over 60% of the population making less than $40,000 a year, or is either 20 or 40, dude. Even if it's 40, still, that's what the heck. And and you're talking about a visit like that, something like that, for what ended up being nothing, thankfully, right, dude? That would in the States,
yeah.
that probably would have cost you like over 10 grand, right? Like 15 grand, something like that. And so
Oh,
what
per
do you?
test, it would have cost at least like five,
Yeah,
and
like
some of them more. It easily could have gotten to like I'd assume the 15 to like 30 range.
so say you spend maybe 5 grand a year in taxes for your healthcare. I mean,
Right.
even if you don't use it the one day, like the one day, say the one day that you might need to use it, and your entire life you've paid for it, right? And
Yeah.
and if you get, God forbid, if you get cancer, you break your leg, or even if even if your wife gets pregnant, you have to have a baby. That's not going to bankrupt you. I mean, I just don't understand, man. You have these people. They're the majority of the population, the majority of the country is living basically under the poverty line. They don't have any
Hmm.
savings. They don't have any safety net. They have all these right wingers talking about personal responsibility and freedom and liberty and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, but like how do I have any freedom whatsoever if I'm tied to an employer simply by virtue of the fact that they're providing me with health care, and that if I even then I'm still paying at the nose and I'm still being fleeced to no end. And then even then, if I do get sick, I'm still going to be put through the ringer trying to claim everything, all the stuff that I paid for. It's I don't see how you can defend that. I don't see how it's a morally defensible thing. And then you can get into the logistics of it because people say, "Hey, you can't institute this and on a scale this large. It's never been done." And I'm like, it's simple math. Economies of scale show that the larger number you have, the easier it is to do. Um,
No, I think that's a fair point.
yeah.
I remembered my earlier point, not to, or what got the thought going,
Yeah.
not to switch this conversation at all because I want to
No,
keep it
dude, this
going.
is
But
this is why I want to do like topic, because I'm like, oh, I have all this data, and like I
yeah,
want to cover all the
yeah,
bases, right?
the the one that got me the thought going, and as it does anytime it comes up, is in other countries where it's like secondary school is free or a lot
Hmm.
cheaper.
Hmm.
That's the one where I'm like, okay, that's where I'd be curious about it being implemented in, say, Canada or the US, where how would it interplay between a federal level and then the provincial levels and all that. That's what I was referring to earlier.
Oh,
But I'm
oh, oh. I mean, I could definitely like, dude, like that is almost that's almost simpler, right? I mean, you can make the argument where, I mean, and studies have shown.
really
Yeah. Well, no,
just
I mean,
to me the healthcare one is much simpler because I'm with you. I'm like, no,
uh,
just do it. Now, if in that sense, I will add, like, look, if you are super duper rich and you can afford everything, and that it doesn't negatively impact me,
mhm,
you being able to afford like faster healthcare, I don't necessarily see anything wrong with that
yeah.
personally.
Mhm.
If it impacts everybody else, then no. But if there's a system out there where it's like, hey, look, for everybody else, like Bill Gates being seen this afternoon isn't going to
Yeah.
push me on a waiting list back a year or a couple like an extra couple months. I personally don't see the problem with that. Just because, hey, look, if he's got that funds, or Idris Elba, who currently has the virus,
Yeah.
like if they've got that, then he's got the money. Then that's his personal prerogative, and if it's not going to negatively impact me, I don't really care. But everybody else shouldn't be impacted by that decision. Oh my gosh, man, we're going so all over the place.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, like in terms of the schooling, I mean, like the argument is, uh, a well-educated populace is going to generate 5 times. Someone with a post-secondary education is going to generate 5 times more GDP than someone without.
Right.
Right there. What else? What, like, I don't understand. Give me an argument against that. Like, we're all going to be 5 times. The country itself is going to be 5 times richer if we give these people. Like, I mean, if you can say, hey, giving people free education is going to drain us of 6 times the money, and we're only going to get 5 times the money back, then yes, I would. But I don't think anyone can make that argument. Like
Right. Well,
free
and
education. The only reason education is so expensive is because they've been allowed to gouge people, and basically, like, in the States especially, like the loan industry and the government and the universities and the accreditation industry, they're all in cahoots together. They're in bed together, right? And they basically, there's a documentary about this, how they inflated the market with diplomas, in like the 90s.
I'd be really curious to check that one out. I
Yeah,
guess with I guess I admittedly don't know as much, but I'm it's weird just because I'll admit I don't know where all the money goes
hmm
when it goes to a school.
hmm
I'd love to think like, look, if the money is going towards one the people working there and they're getting paid a proper wage for what they do,
yeah,
then I'm for that. I did like, but it depends on like who defines that. But then also like the cost of school, you can recognize like buildings cost and all that. For me, it's beyond that. I love the idea of schools being cheaper because what I disagree with entirely in Canada and of course also down in the US is just how much the loans and everything set people back. It should not be okay for someone who is working full time or even part time as a student or after, like 5 or 6 years later, still paying off that loan. That's ridiculous.
yeah. It shouldn't, dude. Like you have you have citizens. Like you say, you're born into a country. You say, hey, country, I want to be great. Help me out.
Right.
Help me be great. And the country's like, no, we're gonna charge you for to even take a shot. Maybe you'll get an opportunity. Maybe you'll be able to work. Maybe. No,
Well,
man.
and
No. Why should I care about myself? Why like I don't like it's to me it's like if I'm paying taxes, my healthcare should be provided to me, my education should be provided to me, and then I'm going to live long and contribute as much as I possibly can to the country, given the fact that I've been educated and I have free healthcare.
see, I think there's been a shift where, and you can attest, like both of our parents' generation and before them, like at the time, basically universally every job with the exception of few,
Mm.
needed beyond a high school education. You
Oh,
could
Chris.
get almost any job off of a high school education. And then it was you needed the specialty study, which if you're paying for that, like if it's more of that special interest,
Yeah.
that I'm more okay with.
Yeah.
But as you mentioned earlier, like the diploma factory and all that, and I'm really interested in that documentary,
Mm.
especially because 90% of the time the documentaries I watch are light and frivolous because I get enough of life sucking from real life.
Oh,
So I'll be like,
documentaries
all
are
right,
yeah, they're the
sorry.
worst or the best for that to make you be like, oh, there is no point.
I'll
It's
be
worse
like,
than there's no point. It's just a
I'll just be like, you know what? I want to learn more about the toys that made us, and that's a great documentary.
yeah.
It's
The
just,
point is to be scared and to suffer. That is the point. Oh,
but now so many jobs, and it's even a point of in my field, where in my field I've been working for 10 years, but right now there's like nowhere to apply because the country's kind of on hold, and
yeah.
that's fair. We're in an epidemic, um, and every like that makes sense. But beforehand, as me and my friends were looking for stuff, we're like, it's rough.
Oh,
Like
Chris, rough.
so many places are looking for your like I've got 10 years experience, but they're looking for say 5 to 10 years experience, but also minimum your bachelor's.
But here's the thing, dude,
I
because
don't
they know.
I don't have the money to go back to school and I don't want to owe the province.
These
Like
people know, dude. Everybody and their cousin has a damn bachelor's. Everybody and their cousin has something, right? Like an English and bachelor in English, just some BS thing. So what they can do is they can say to you, "Hey, we want this many years experience. We want you to work for peanuts, even though you do have like a post-secondary education diploma. It doesn't matter because everybody does." And that's the thing. They
yeah.
fed everybody the same lie. Our parents were like, "Oh, you got to go to now." And here's the thing, they fed us a lie that was fed to them. So I was talking to my coworker about this today, and basically we ended up operating under two false assumptions. A false assumption operating under a false assumption. And we became adults being like, oh, not only like we knew that the world wasn't like the way they said it was, but it wasn't even like the way we thought it was. Never mind the way they said it was. And like, you know, you got your parents telling you one thing. Oh, you know, in my day, I could just go in at 16, be like, hey, I want a job. I'm here to work. They give it to you, blah, blah, blah. I couldn't do that. I don't know if you could have done that. I know I sure as heck couldn't have done that. My coworker today, he's like, when I was 14, I went down to the factory, down at the exhibition. They gave me a job. And I was like, dude, when I was 14, I knew I couldn't do that. Like, there was nothing in my mind. Like, I wanted to get a job, but I was like, they would never hire me, right? Maybe if I
Well,
knew someone, right? Like, the only reason I got my
it's
job at 17
sorry.
is because I knew my grandpa worked there, man. And I was, remember you and Mike came to see me at the bakery? And the only reason I
Yeah.
got that is because my grandpa worked there. They never would have hired me, ever. And it's such a different thing. Like, my mom, she just tell me about, she used to, when she was, like, younger, like, maybe in her, like, early 20s. It's like, oh yeah, I worked for the CRA, then I went and worked for this other company, blah, blah. And every job she tells me that she just left on a whim, I was like, that's a job you keep for life. The second you get that job, you don't move it. Like, if I worked for the CRA when I was 22, I'd still be working for the CRA now. I'd be working for the CRA 20 years from now. I'd be like Mike, dude. Like, he got a job working at the library when he was, what, like 16, 17, maybe
Yeah, I
even
think
earlier.
so.
And he hasn't stopped. And it's like, he doesn't want to work for the library. It's not his passion. He doesn't, in fact, he doesn't really like it. But he's getting paid insane amounts of money. He gets a crazy amount of vacation paid. And when he gets there, he can do whatever, like, if he wants to run his business, he can, because he has the time to do it. Like, what more can
It's
you ask for?
well, it's interesting as you mentioned your mom, who, by the way, shout out. She is a loyal listener, and I
Yeah.
really appreciate it. She likes almost every time I post, and I'm like, oh, it's just such an encouragement. So thank you. And then
Yeah.
also, while I'm on the mom shout out train, shout out to my mom. You do the same. Thank you, mom.
Yeah, she's like, oh, I was listening to Chris the other day. Well, you guys are really funny. And I was just like, oh crap. But you know, it's fun. I have said that to her before, but she's told me about this. I'm like, Mom, I would have kept the crap out of that job. I don't know what you were thinking. And it's not like she wasn't thinking right. It was literally, the time was different. She was able to just leave a job and get another one. You know, it's not like she wasn't able to.
That's the crazy thing. Like at that time, like in their lifetime and before their lifetime, like that was a thing you could do.
Yeah.
Like you could, like high school was enough, and that's bonkers. Where it'd be like the specialty fields, like teaching. Understandably, you can't just do out of high school. Like I've known enough teachers and know how much they do. Where I respect so much, and I understand why they have to, like they do the advanced. Like they had to do more schooling for it,
Yeah.
but so many other places now are like, oh, you need schooling plus this, plus this, plus this. But every, like, borderline every job now requires that absolute post-secondary,
Yeah.
and that's nuts. Because post-second, I would love to see it go down. Like if you can pay, if you can, sure. I don't necessarily have an inherent problem with it. If you can, but it shouldn't cost nearly as much as it does. And then for those that can't, or even if they can, it might be financially risky for them to do so. They should have the option not to.
Yeah, well, I don't. The thing is like it's. I don't think the separation of the populace based on how much money they're making is good, right? Like, so for instance,
No, and
if
that's
you have like
fair.
this,
That's fair.
it's. I mean, you can even, and everyone's like, oh, we're getting into authoritarian sort of territory here, but it's very like, what kind of populace do you want? You know, what kind of people are we trying to make here? What kind of, you know, um, my argument would be, hey, why don't we just make the rich pay more, and then the schools will be better, and then they won't have to pay for private schools. And if they're still not satisfied with the state of the schools, then invest more. You have all this extra money. We're not taxing you of all your money. You can invest in the school, make it better. You know, and look at Bloomberg. Look at how much he spent. $500 million to not become president. I spent $0, and I also achieved the same goal. If he could have, dude, he could have spent that money on other campaigns, on everybody else's campaign, on he could have spent that money on free education, free healthcare for people. He could have. Oh, dude. Oh my gosh, Chris. For what?
We'll put a pin in this one, I feel.
That, I mean, for a man to even have that much money, I mean, I could make the argument that that's not moral in and of itself. You can, you know, people can say, oh, you know, you're attacking the rich and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, for one, you're never going to be that rich, so I don't know why you care. And I know that's not even a good argument because it's like, okay, well, you can say you're never gonna be black, so what do you care about what they do or say to black people? And it's like, well, it's wrong to do that. Period. So I can see that's how that's not a good argument. But um, my argument would be, can you say that someone who's made that much money has done it in a completely amoral fashion? Can you guarantee that? Like, I can't, dude. I mean,
So I guess on that point,
yeah.
like unless to me, unless I can see demonstrably that
Mm,
they've made it immorally,
mm.
then I'd be like, okay, well, no.
Well,
If it's
there's
demonstrably immorally,
yeah,
if it's if it's something I cannot prove,
yeah.
then I'd be my personal take is like, look, what you do with your money and however much you've made of it, unless you're doing something that causes pain and suffering to others or negatively impacts society as a whole,
Yeah.
like that's your prerogative.
Well, you
The
could.
funny example I gave last time we talked in person was like, look, if you've got $100 million and you
Yeah.
want to and you choose to buy a replica of the Tim Burton Batmobile, that's your
Hmm.
prerogative, and I'll
Of
probably
course.
ask if I can ride it.
Yeah. Well, I
But
mean,
if you've sorry,
I'm sorry, dude. You just it sparks so much okay. So a lot of people are making the argument that the systems in place in order for someone to make that much money are inherently immoral in and of themselves. So you can't get, even if you personally haven't done anything, the route through which your money has taken, basically, in terms of like sweatshops, or if we're talking about using offshore accounts in order to avoid paying
oh
taxes and just stuff like that. I'm saying I think all that's immoral. I think all that
oh no,
you can't defend
I
that.
would agree with I'd agree with those things.
Yeah.
I would absolutely agree with
and
those
and
things.
it's like I can't remember who said it, but they were talking about how, how like with cops, one bad apple spoils the bunch, which
Mm.
that is the saying. So if you're saying, hey, there's only a few bad apples, they're spoiling the whole bunch, man. So so that's the problem, right? But anyway, no, no,
I
um,
get. Sorry, I'm not trying to cut you off.
yeah, no, no,
I just want to respond.
yeah,
I like for myself. I do, and I look at things and situations on a very individual person by person basis, right? So in that situation, like if you've got an offshore account so you can avoid the taxes
yeah,
that you have to pay, as in Canada, the rich already do automatically pay more. If you are avoiding that, then yeah, you're breaking the law, you're doing stuff that's illegal and immoral, you should face consequences for
yeah,
that. But if you are somebody who is not doing any of those things, say you open a restaurant, it does good business. You're able to open a second location. It does good business. You are not undercutting any of your employees. You are
no, no,
not like you're doing everything
uh,
right,
yeah. There's dude,
and
there's
you get to a certain level,
yeah.
like you get to a very successful level,
Mhm.
then I'm not at all saying you are doing this, but it's then when it's the blanket statement of, oh, the rich, it's just like all the rich have to do this. If the person's already doing everything by law that's mandated, they haven't done anything immoral, then I might be like, man, I'd love to have as much money as you do, but
Well,
I wouldn't
that's
have that issue.
that's different, right? I mean, I think people
Right.
are they're misunderstanding what the rich means. I'm talking about like international corporation rich, like multi
Okay,
conglomerate,
no, no, and that
like
that's a good distinction.
the type of wealth where you can spend $500 million on a campaign and it's a drop in the bucket for you, basically, right? That amount
Right.
of wealth, that's not moral, dude. Like that, he's taken that capital away from workers. He's taken that capital away from education, healthcare, infrastructure, everything. He's robbing people of their own money, and it's wrong, dude. And it was interesting. I can't remember who said this. I think it was
I
Tutu.
do want to
Des.
make clear I wasn't trying to defend him.
Oh no, I know, dude. I know. But
Okay,
that's
cool.
what I'm talking about. That's sort of wealth. The wealth, like
Okay.
when you've accumulated $500 million. I mean, maybe you're J.K. Rowling, but more likely you're a POS, right? But,
Well, I was gonna say like Bill Gates, who did tremendous things with his wealth, did tremendous things with the foundation. Like they do a lot of good work. I see you want to respond.
Yeah, to me, that's you're washing your hands of other stuff you've done, right? That maybe people aren't so aware of. But I
Okay.
mean, at least in that case, if we're gonna if we're gonna go down a list of like rich dudes that we should, I would say Bill Gates would be rather low on that list. Personally, but no, man, no, but I think Desmond Tutu said this about apartheid, where he was like, we can't begin to heal or repair everything unless everybody who did stuff that was wrong comes out and admits that what they did was wrong. Because what he said, it was not the man himself or the person themselves, it's the system. Like, if you're going to live and exist within the system in order to function within it, you have to demonstrate and adhere to certain behaviors, right? And he was saying, hey, we're not going to persecute you, but you have to admit everything you've done in order for us to heal and like fix this and stuff, right? And I think there's this aspect of that where it's like, it's a broken system, and it's been broken a million times along, a bunch of years by very, very wealthy, very I would say immoral people, and it's just been chipped away at, and then we're getting into this situation where we're seeing now, right, with the states and with us. And yeah, that's why you're seeing a lot of socialist sentiment, man. Like, this stuff doesn't come out of nowhere. I mean,
No, no.
wealth inequality is as high as it's ever been in modern history. That's why you're seeing this stuff. That's why you're seeing people gravitate towards authoritarianism and socialism and stuff like that. So if the rich would play ball and they wouldn't be so greedy, do you really need billions of dollars? I mean, we know things would be going a lot better, man. Things would be going a lot better. I mean, look what happened with Trump and the tax cuts, man. All that was fake. All the gains he's made since becoming president, all that was fake, dude. It was all fake. Like, it was all speculative. And now it's crashed within days. Because they know the house of cards is falling, man. And it's... Chris, I'm sorry. I'm tired. I'm getting tired, dude. Okay, let's... Okay.
It's okay.
Okay, here, let's talk... Okay, you asked me before we start... you were like, hey, man, what's going on with music, right? Because I was like, oh, Tommy sent me this thing.
Yeah.
And okay, so... Oh, okay, that's more... I wanted to talk to you more about what's going on with you, man. That's actually more what I wanted to talk about.
Okay, so here, we'll put a pin in this stuff. We'll definitely revisit it.
Oh, I mean,
at
dude,
a later time.
There's 8 things I want to put pins in so far.
Okay, so here, we'll put a pin in the political stuff because we can both go back to it. There's like 8 episodes worth of stuff there.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll revisit all the pins.
Yeah. Well, let's leave it in, right? But yeah.
Oh yeah. No. I'm not saying we take it out.
Okay,
I'm just saying
it's all cool.
Officially right now, as much as we can keep going, we will put a capital P pin in the politics talk.
Yeah. It's
and
like
then we'll revisit all the stuff later.
Can we get like, can we go to like 720?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I could also go down the rabbit hole with you so much on this stuff.
I know there's so much we don't talk enough, dude. And I think when we do talk, it goes really cool. I think we're really good at talking to each other. I think it's
no, absolutely,
dude. I think it's a lot more. I think talking to someone is a lot more difficult than people realize. Like I think I think people find it a lot more difficult to talk to people than they even realize they do. They themselves realize.
Absolutely. Well, here's the thing, and it's something I've always appreciated with you, and I hope it's likewise. Like, whenever we have a conversation, we are going for, like, this is what we believe fully about. This is what we are firm about. Here's the backing of it. But never, when we've had a conversation, have I felt like you were trying to be like, Chris, you're an idiot, and if you disagree with me, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
you might feel very strongly, but it's never gotten to the personal level. You will bring you will back it 100%, and then you will leave it at me, and you'll later be like, hey, what'd you think about it? And if I'm still like, I disagree, you don't then jump at me. You're just like, oh, okay. Like, why do you disagree? And it's a two-way street. Like, it's a good conversation.
Yeah, whenever it ends, it's never angry. If it ends, it's just like,
exactly.
At worst, it's like, fair enough, man. Fair enough.
We might be like, okay, you know what? We're at an impasse for now.
Different people.
Well, heck, I remember a podcast we did early when it was one of the derailed episodes, when you were like, oh yeah, it's like, I'm a human being too, and I have a right to an opinion that's different than yours. Like, that's the thing, and that's been very true throughout our entire friendship. We don't always agree, but we never go at each other. We're never like you moron or you mook or anything.
I feel like
We'll sooner sing a song obnoxiously in the jungle on the back of the Dawes Road bus than we will attack each other.
I think, dude, I think about that. I think about that. Not often, but from time to time. No, but
When the memory hits, it's always good.
one thing is that you were always very good, or at least you seem to be, like on the surface, very good at not entangling your points of views with you as a person, with like your value of who you are, right? So you separate your ideas from you. And a lot of people have a very difficult time doing that. They have a difficult time for separating other people's ideas from them, or even and then themselves, right? So it's they'll defend other people based on their ideas, even if they don't necessarily agree with them, but they like that person.
I appreciate that, man.
Yeah.
I really do. Thank you.
But, dude, I don't
All
know,
right,
dude.
so
I mean, thank your mom or something. It's just someone raised you right. I don't know.
well, thank you. I always thank my mom, but thank you, mom.
Thank you,
were
Goofy
wonderful.
movie. You did a great job.
On a dude, so as I was talking with Jen the other night, like I mentioned to you, when I got Disney Plus, I was so excited about the Goofy movie being on there that I watched it, and that's what I watched it on when I did the watch along. And then I was like, I want to revisit Goof Troop. That's a very different thing than a Goofy movie. It's just one of those things where, as much as I love like Disney Plus, and you've got the options to revisit all these things from your childhood, as much as I love something like, say, Power Rangers, which it's got the nostalgic childhood love, there's something there that I can hook onto as an adult.
Yeah.
With some of the things on Disney Plus, it's just like, okay, nope, that's very much something for the kids. Goof Troop, I was like, okay, nope, one episode was enough. Goofy movie had the goofy antics, but it also had like the heart, like that stuff that you can grapple onto as an adult.
It did that thing that PB Herman discovered and they perfected, I think, around that time where you make it so that the adults can enjoy it too, right?
Yeah,
Pixar
without the
perfected
dirty
it, I guess,
humor.
really. Yeah. That's well, PB he didn't even know what he was doing. It's interesting to listen to interviews with Paul Rubens now. He's an interesting guy. But no, okay, dude, I want to. Okay, so you were like,
Yeah.
hey, okay, what did you ask me exactly about the music? What were you going to say? Were you just saying, like, hey, what's going on with it, or?
Yeah. Just because we were talking before we started recording, and you kind of said like, I'm at an interesting place with music right now. So, dear listener, for those of you who don't know, my buddy Christian here, I've known him since 4th grade, and then since about 8th grade, I've known you've been into you've been recording and producing and making music. I saw your band, the original cast, live a number of times. I actually even have on some of my hard drives like backed up recordings from your earliest stuff. I sent it to you a couple of years ago, but if you need it again, I'll find it. I think I've got like Rainy Day Incorporated.
Chris, I've
got some of your original cast stuff, and
wow,
there was a song that you reworked. I can't remember it, but it was maybe Julia or just a girl's name. I just can't remember the name of it.
Remember our friend
There
Catherine?
we go. Yes, Catherine.
Yeah.
I've got that stuff. So like music has been your outlet for so long.
Yeah.
And just when you said you're at an interesting crossroads with right now, I'm super curious. So,
okay. Well, first thing, like I know one thing that was interesting to me was that as you get older, I read that like as men get older, especially, your testosterone starts to get lower, and your creativity and that energy and that drive sort of starts to drop, right? And I think just in general, like if you're stressed out, you're not really in a creative mindset, right? But one thing I'm realizing is I need more energy, like I need more space around in my life around in order to make music, in order to feel like compelled to do it. But like recently I took about like a year or two off of just like I didn't even play guitar. I didn't do anything.
oh wow.
Yeah, and it was a couple years after Dad died. But even then, right after he died, like I was going crazy with it, and then it's kind of drove me insane because what I was trying to do was I was trying to learn how to become an audio engineer while recording my own album, which is the dumbest, craziest thing you could do, dude. Like it's. I mean, like for one, you should never mix your own album ever. Even if you know how to mix, Even if you're a good audio engineer, you should never do that. Doesn't mean you're too close to it. You can't do it. I still don't necessarily agree with that. But right now I
Is
feel
it
like,
just
I don't
like
know, man. I feel
you'll never be fully satisfied? You'll drive your own self crazy. You need an objective ear kind of thing. Someone just to be
yes.
like, "Hey, this is okay, but there's a better take," and you're kind of like, "No, screw you. It's perfect."
Oh, absolutely, dude. Yeah. Or it's like, hey, man, that's fine. You can move on. And it's things like that where it's also, I'm realizing like, holy crap, becoming a good audio engineer it takes years and years and years of just everyday practicing. And right now I'm at a point where I'm trying to separate the two. I'm trying to separate the recording aspect from the mixing aspect, and it's still kind of difficult, and it's very difficult to stay motivated and to keep like motivation going and stuff. Um, so right now I'm at a sort of a point where like I've been mixing. Okay, dude. Okay, here's the thing. Here's what's driving me crazy right now. I found this old song that I'd writ with Josh. You remember Josh Quercy,
Yeah,
Jacob's little
yeah,
brother?
yeah. I do.
So I was writing. Him and I were gonna do like a 6 song EP just to throw away. So I threw down like I wrote these songs really really quick. And so I went and it was at a time where I was like I was young and I didn't have a job and I was so inspired and I was so motivated and I just did everything really quickly and it came out decent. And so I found this old file and I was like, oh, I'm gonna rework it. I'm gonna rework it now with all my new plugins and my instruments and my know-how, and I'm just gonna get a rough version out there so I can listen to it and then completely redo it, right? Like from the ground up. And
Right.
so for like almost a month now, I've been working on this thing, and it's like, dude, it's not done. Like, even if you mix it to like where it's done, you still have like half the song's not even there. You're missing instruments. There's none of these takes are the takes you're gonna want to end up using. Why are you spending this much like every night, but sitting here just sort of testing out, oh, maybe this tape emulation plugin will make it sound a bit different. Or maybe if I run them into everything at minus 12 decibels, it'll hit it at the right spot. Just stuff like that, dude. It's like, I mean, I have made a little progress. I do feel like I've found things out where I'm like, I'm always gonna do this from now on. But yeah, man, yeah, it's just sort of driving me crazy, and I'm realizing like there's so many things going on in my head that I'm not paying proper attention to, that I'm not addressing. And Monica said, she's like, dude, you need to quit. You need to go to therapy for 3 months and then, exercise every day, do yoga, just do art, yoga, exercise, therapy. It's all you need. Like,
Right.
just do that. And I'm starting to realize, yeah, dude, like I have to go to therapy. There's so much stuff before Dad died, and then after he died. Like I don't know how to explain it. It's messing with me, man. And it's just getting worse. It's one of those things where like the longer you put it off, the deeper in you get, and the harder it is to get out. Right?
Well, that's the thing, like with mental health, and especially when you're dealing with your own crap. I mean, like I've slowly started to open up more on here about stuff where it's like 90% of the time I'm happy to, like, I will happily talk about a movie or even the serious stuff, but it's like I gotta put up a distance. But the anxiety piece, like, I didn't realize until a couple of years ago, like, no, something's legit wrong. And then I realized, like, it'd been wrong for years. I just didn't want to deal with it, and I'd write it off like, look, no, it's just that situation. And then also, it's not fun. And it's not about things being fun, but let's call a spade a spade. Who wants to deal with something in the middle of it? It's against our nature. It's against so much where when a conflict arises, unless it's something where you're like, oh, I can get a good situation out of this or a peaceable one right away, you avoid it. You walk away from it. Be it
Yeah.
you yell or like smack something away and then walk away. Like, you've removed yourself from the situation, you come back. But when it's mental health or something where it's like it follows you around, you avoid that consciously or subconsciously, and it
And
needs to
that's
get addressed.
it needs to get addressed because it's going to wear you down. It's going to eat literally at your body and your mind and your soul, because what's happening is like it's your body's reacting as a fight or flight response to things that
Hmm.
aren't there, to things that you're not really addressing. So you're constantly in a state of like low level anxiety, right? And that's gonna drive you insane. That's gonna destroy your brain. It's gonna destroy your health. It's gonna turn you into a 30-year-old who has the posture of like a 55-year-old dude. That's what it's gonna turn you into. Okay, aka me. Uh, and It's gonna weigh you down, dude. It makes
Oh
you
yeah.
tight. It pulls you in like a into a ball, and it's so bad. And um, yeah, man. No, it's you. No one. You're like you said. No one wants to deal with something in the middle of it. And I don't know if you feel this way, but I feel like there was a lot of youth behind my ability to avoid stuff. And now that I'm older, I don't have the energy, and it's really like reality sort of starting to hit me in the face. It's starting to come to fruition, and I'm seeing my future. I'm getting a good look at it. I'm like, I'm 30 now, and another 30 years I'll be 60. It's almost over, right? And it's just starting to click. That's how it feels, man. That's how it feels. This first 30 years
Oh
went
no,
by
no.
so quickly, and when I found my dad, he was only 62 or 63, and so I'm just like, well, what if I only have 30 years left, right? Like,
Right.
what am I gonna do?
No, no, dude.
Um.
I relate
Oh
to
crap!
that
Was
so much. I relate to what you're saying so much, and I definitely get that as well.
yeah.
Whereas, like when you're younger, I mean, there's so many other ways you can avoid it, and you're also going through so much crap when you're younger. Like it's like legit, your brain's growing, hormones are all over the place. Like that's become a catch-all, but it's legit. Like there's so much crap going on that there's so many distractions that you just latch onto, or you can pin your underlying
Yeah.
issues on that aren't legit. But then now, as you get older, like even though you've still got your friends, it's like, look, the reality is when you're older, it's not like high school where you see your buddies every single day and you spend 90% of your day with them or anything like that.
Yeah.
You're at a job which even if you enjoy or don't, that's not always going to be the distractor from these things. It's going to bring them up. You're in a situation where you're like, oh crap, I have to deal with this, and my whole life I've not wanted to. So then you're in a situation where it's a lot more palpable, right? Like it's just you can't run from it, even
Yeah.
if
It's
you
like,
weren't
oh,
trying to. It's you're trapped on all
yeah.
sides.
If you didn't realize.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
you are the
Yeah. Yeah.
boat
Yeah. It's
in
yeah.
Jaws,
Yeah.
and that sucker's circling you. Just to work in the Jaws reference. Yeah.
Yeah, dude. Well, I
No,
mean, like personally,
sorry.
I think I just gotta stop smoking weed. I think that'd be the biggest thing to help me, just getting off the THC.
Getting
Really, dude.
off
No,
of
because
it?
I was reading an article today that really hit home, where it's like getting off of it. Yeah, yeah, man. Because I was reading an article today that mentioned they're like, because they're talking about the higher THC count and strains and oils and stuff at the dispensaries, and they're noticing that a lot of people now with the higher THC counts, a lot of people are experiencing more like psychosis, and they're the basically what happens is it makes it more difficult for your brain to process emotional memories, um, which is why I'm probably still 16 in a lot of ways. And it also it just it makes you more, yeah, it makes you more anxious and paranoid, obviously, right? But because what happens in your hippocampus, I don't know, it's the way the THC interacts with your hippocampus. But what they were saying was that if you get something that's like half CBD and half THC, it'll actually turn that high into something more euphoric and calm, and it'll actually
Mm,
counteract those effects on your memory and anxiety.
mm.
So I was thinking of trying that, maybe to going, because now I just vape weed. I don't smoke it anymore, just vape it. So I go to the dispensary and I get like a little vape cartridge. So I was thinking of getting like a half CBD, half THC, and then just weaning off from there, right?
Right. Well, and I'm gonna do a long pause just because feel free to cut this part out. Because it's not meant as an insult. It's just as you were, I'm remembering something from the many years we've known each other. There was,
Mm,
and it was almost like the '70s show because there's a particular episode, and I think you'll remember it. Um, but there was a time where, like, as long as I've known you, I've seen you go from, like, in especially middle school and then high school, where it would be you would smoke maybe once every couple months to then once a month to then twice a month, and then it would pick up gradually. But then there was a time in our early 20s, and you were smoking a lot, but you were it was like it was having a real effect on you because you'd be miserable without it, but then but then also
mm,
you get more anxious and more paranoid the more you smoked, but you were taking
yeah.
it to help with the anxiety and the paranoia, but it was kind of looped in. But
Yeah.
like I said, that's I'm not. Feel free to cut all that. That can just be a between us kind of thing because I'm not trying to say anything bad about you.
No. No, dude. I mean, no. Obviously, no,
Okay,
no. I
cool.
mean, dude, I take so much. I would take. There's so much criticism I would take as valid. I mean, I don't think you. I don't. I think most people don't realize, given my all the behavior of my entire life. But but no, dude, no, because like
Some of it I might have brought on by instigating something until you chased me around the top of UICI.
oh, you said you called me sloppy, and I didn't want to be known as sloppy when I wasn't that guy. That wasn't me, man. I'm still mad about it. That was
Okay, we'll cut out the definition, but in my
because
defense,
I know how easy that stuff could stick.
in my defense, I would have never called you that to anybody else except you, the people who were in the room.
Oh,
But
but
I
who was more
understand.
likely to call me that all the time than the people in the room, Chris? You know
But
better
only
than anyone. Those people are ruthless. They're cruel. They're monsters, man. Darko and Mike, their beady little soulless eyes. They don't. They don't care, man.
It was only because I saw the rise it was getting out of you, not because of what it meant you were. But yeah, we'll cut that part out.
I know we don't have to cut any of it. No, it's all. No, it's interesting what you said because I think what happened was like I wasn't dealing well with being who I was at 16, and the weed really helped with that. And then now, my brain's developed. I've developed. Like I'm sort of. I should know who I am. I should be comfortable with who I am. But I've spent this whole time avoiding it, right? And I think that's the biggest thing where I'm like I have to figure out who I am again. I can't keep avoiding it anymore because it's causing way too many problems. It's just making it too difficult to keep doing what I want to do, which is mess around. Screw off,
No, I
So
definitely
I'm just
get
like,
that. I mean, oh, sorry.
yeah. Oh no, I was just like, well, I guess like the time is like it's time to stop screwing around. It's time to stop screwing off. It's time to stop messing around. Yeah.
Well, and like that's I definitely get that. I mean, and we all have parts of ourselves that we don't like that we conflate with who we are entirely as a human being or as a person.
Yeah.
We can definitely fixate on our faults and make that who we are, and that's not true. Just as we can fixate on those things that we love about ourselves and be like, oh, that's entirely me, and that's also not true. Like
Yeah.
we're a balance, but
Yeah.
it's trying to figure out who you are is something that I don't think ever stops. I really don't. Like there might be certain
No.
things about you that will fundamentally inform who you are, or it might be a characteristic that you will carry always. But the thing is, like, we are always changing, we are always growing. Even after our brain stops, like, I can't
Oh
remember
yeah.
who said
Yeah.
it.
No.
It's just
I mean.
sorry. No. I'm going off on the
Oh no.
rabbit trail. Yeah.
I mean I just wanted to, I didn't I guess I didn't articulate myself. I guess what I meant was more like there's all the stuff I would have learned about myself in the past like 16, 15 years that I haven't, and
Oh,
it may not mean that like now I know everything about myself. I know exactly who I am, but I would have so much more information upon which to work, right? Off of which to work.
oh no. I definitely got that, and that's on me. What I was trying to say with that was like, because as you were saying, there was things you were avoiding, right? Like there were things
Oh yeah.
that you were getting from elsewhere that so you were avoiding. I'm like in that of I can't words, but in that avoidance, like
Make better
from
word mouth.
make better word mouth. But for me, like there were definite things in my teens where I was like, there were things I didn't like about myself. And like there was times I out and out hated myself. So I would have like just pursue whatever to avoid those things, to avoid dealing with those things.
Mhm.
And it wouldn't be until later where I'm like, look, there's a problem. I got to address it. That then I could figure out who I was beyond just the things I didn't like the behaviors, the whatever the heck, right?
Yeah.
the down talking or whatever. That was the point I was trying to get to, but then I just
No.
kept going into the weeds, which is apparently now my favorite expression.
Into the weeds. That's the name of the episode, man.
There actually, yeah, no, dude, that works perfect because I think it was you on the first episode. Now every episode I do with like when it's me, you, Mike, Darko, and Christian. I'm sitting Christian, but I meant in Tommy because you're right here. Like, yeah, nope, Tom. Sorry, Tom. Like anytime it's us, I'm like, let's just call it what it is. Like it's derailed, and that's fine. That's what we do because we'll get on one train of thought and then we'll jump to the next. Like there's no tracking with that sucker.
No.
But
Too
with
many
us,
dudes.
but with us, I think Into the Weeds is very appropriate because anytime we do this, we're gonna one of us is gonna say something that's gonna want to make the other jump and then keep going,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
literally go unpack everything and go on down that trail into the weeds. So perfect, perfect, sir. That's the title.
Oh man, we gotta do this more often, dude. There's so many things that like not even just the stuff where it's like, oh, we gotta put a pin in this and do like a real episode about it, but there's so many things about like our childhood and like who we are and how like
Hmm.
you remember things about me that I don't remember, man. I think that's the biggest thing. It's not only that like the weed like it helped me avoid stuff like in my mind, like it literally on a brain chemistry level it did. Like my dreams, you don't really dream, right? You know, all the stuff that you figure out in your dreams, I haven't really been doing that. You know, it's stuff like that where it's like the emotional memory, you forget
Mm,
that. So you don't really have that to work off of, right? Like you don't
right.
have that to process who you are and to think, oh. So I think that's the biggest thing where I feel like things are being stolen from me. Like my reality is
Mm.
being stolen from me. I mean, it's my own fault, but you know. Yeah, that was just one more thing I wanted to add. But like it's man, we gotta talk more often. We have to talk more often.
Dude, I absolutely agree, and we really will. And yeah, no, let's make this a regular thing. Heck, even if we don't. So, listener, beforehand, Christian and I set this up to record tonight, and it was just to test record, like just to make sure the audio was working. Because Christian was awesome and edited one of my episodes a while ago. And he might edit this one. I haven't formally asked him yet, so that's my ask.
I will definitely. I just assumed I would.
Oh, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. But like we were just gonna test, and then we got into it. And then that I was like, you know what? Even if that's all we do tonight, that's awesome. That was something that I needed. And dude, you you're like one of my oldest friends. It's crazy. It's actually crazy to me that we've known each other since fourth grade. Um, and then as much as I do love, I love Mike and Darko and Tommy. And but it's nuts that when I actually think back, aside from the laughter it brings, like when I think back to how we were to each other, I'm like, how were we friends? And how are any of us functional adults? We were terrible.
Yeah.
Like, we were horrible to each other.
Pubescent
And
boys, dude. Like, we're monsters, just ruthless, stupid, ruthless monsters.
oh my gosh. And yet at the same time, even though we were that way to each other, to give us credit, like we were like we were legit friends. Because as much as we'd give each other like horrible crap, like at the same point, we'd defend each other right away. If anybody else encroached on that, we'd be like, "Yeah, what's your problem?" Like
Yeah,
that's
well,
that.
brothers, man.
Yeah.
I think we
Oh yeah.
yeah, yeah, and that's why,
Yeah.
man. See, there's this whole thing I wanted to talk to you about, like me in my early 20s and the way I felt about my friends and like how like I had this idea, like and how it affected me like for years after. It just I was like, that's something I wanted to talk about, but that's something we could talk about next time.
Oh, dude. Okay. No. I gotta pick your brain. Okay. So we'll go another five. We'll go
Okay.
another five.
Yeah.
I do gotta cap it around 7:30. All right. So as unplug that, unpack that because now I'm really curious.
Oh, okay.
If you can.
Well, I mean, like when I was in like my early 20s, I was living in that basement in Symington, right? And I had gotten that internship at the DOJ, and I was just like, oh man, I'm killing it, right? I got this sweet internship, got my first place, everything's going great, everyone's hanging out, and then like I lost the internship, and when looking back, I'm like, it was all my own fault. There was so much I could have done. I didn't realize what was expected. There was so much I didn't realize about the world and like working and just stuff like that, right? I just didn't realize, and um And then I sort of tried to be like, it made me realize, like, because I was so alone, I was like, I didn't know what to do, right? And so I was just sort of avoiding, like, oh, I was able to get EI, so I could still pay my rent, but I'm like, eventually I'm gonna have to get out of here. I don't know what I'm gonna do. And so I just sort of tried to connect with everybody, right? We're all in our early 20s, and I was just like, hey man, like, I just want a closer relationship with everyone. I didn't really say that, but I tried to make it happen. And then everyone was sort of doing their own stuff. No one thought it was as important as I did. Fair enough, right? Like, totally understandable. The only reason I did is because I was in such a weird place, right? And um and then eventually I just sort of like, I was like, okay, well, if nobody cares as much as I do, then I'm going to care as much as they do. And so that was sort of where it got into, I don't respond to texts, and I don't call people, and I don't do anything with anyone. And it went on for so long that it stopped being like a defense mechanism and just sort of who I am, right? It's just sort of like, I just don't respond to texts because, like, I see them and I'm like, there's so much pressure now. It's like I have to put on this persona of like it seems like every day, like, I'm in my own head and I'm just sort of doing my own thing, and then like I have to talk to another person and be something for them. And it's like, really, dude, is it that hard? Like, what's wrong? Like, are you really that useless that you can't just talk to another person, be yourself? Like, who cares? You don't owe them anything, really. I just text them back. So I don't know, man. It's really weird. I think it's sort of like a habit, and now I'm trying to figure out how to break the habit, get back into who I was,
Right.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. No, I definitely get that. I'm gonna. There's just one thing I want to respond to, but again, we'll feel free to cut this part out.
Mm.
Um, but in the early 20s, like I had lost touch a bit with all you guys. The exception being Mike,
Mm.
just because Mike was working. Like, we'd occasionally do stuff for the Steen movies and that kind of thing. And even for him, he had stopped responding for a while. I'm like, okay, we're all busy, and then you drift apart. But when like when you and Tommy started volunteering at the food bank, like, I was really excited.
Me too.
But then I was also like, this is challenging now, because I'm like, oh, I want to, of course, like, I want to do everything that I can, but they're also my friends,
Mm.
and I want to reach out to them.
Mm.
But I've also got a lot of other volunteers who are going to be looking at, I can't have favoritism or any of that.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, shoot, this is a really tricky thing,
Well, I
because
hope.
I was also suddenly it's like, you guys are back.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my
My
gosh,
friends
like
are back.
my homies,
Yeah.
my friends are back. I've lost these people. And then it's just this challenging thing where I'm like, I got to be firm with them. And you guys never did anything where it made me feel awkward or anything, but
Man, I had that in mind the whole time. I was like, oh crap, like, he's doing me a solid, and I just got to go there and help him out as much as I can. It's not even going to be that long. Like, just go there, do as much as you can, make him look good, make it look like he made a good decision by helping you out, and then get out of there, right? And that was always my attitude. Like, I think, we kind of messed around a bit, but we never did anything where it was like we got in the way or we hindered anything. We just had maybe a
oh
bit more
no,
fun
no.
than other people were having, but
Right. But it was just like, I had never taken the time to ask you what was going on with that, but just at times, especially because I was running it,
Mm.
like, I had so much fun. Like, any of the volunteers, I'd have fun goofing off with, but with you guys, because we'd had so many years of doing that, I was just kind of like, oh shoot. And I, like, it would just be a bit of that anxiety,
Mm.
almost, because I'd catch other people looking at how much fun that we were having, and suddenly be like, oh, they think I'm not working, and they're like, all that kind of jazz. Not you guys, and nobody ever said it. It was just purely on me.
Yeah.
But it's just, it reminded me as you were talking about that, like, how getting in your head messes with you.
Ooh, man, you know what that makes me think about? I was talking to my coworker today about, there's a study I was reading about how this we don't realize how much power we have. Like, they did the study where they sent this young woman out to ask people for, like, hey, can you fill out this questionnaire? People who are waiting for the bus, reading a book on their phone, just doing stuff, right? And because it's really awkward, it's like, I
Hmm.
don't want to bug this person. And then they had this other guy go out and he asked for crazy things like, oh, can I borrow $100 from you, complete stranger, or can I use your phone, things like that. And they were saying, like, you would be astounded how often people were likely to say yes. And there's two messages in it, wherein A, you don't realize how much power you have in the world just by asking, because B, you don't realize that they don't want to look like a jerk. And that is extremely powerful. It is so much more powerful than we realize. Because we're so concerned with us, right? We're so concerned with, like, oh, they're not going to want to help me. This is annoying, blah, blah, blah. But we're not thinking like, oh, they're going to feel obligated. They don't want to look like a jerk. Yeah. So it's just one of those things where you're so in your own head
Yeah.
that you're not aware of reality, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a great point, and unfortunately, I think that's the fair point where we can end
Yeah.
it. So, dear listener, thank you for listening so much. I really appreciate it, Christian. Thank you so much for doing this and keeping on it. Because I'll like, not that I was going to forget it at all. Don't get me wrong, but I'll admit in my depression and everything that's going on right now, as you were sharing the stuff about the music, like I get that with stuff that brings me joy. Like I shared a couple episodes ago, there were some episodes where I'd record the episode and midway through the recording, I'm like, I don't want to do this. You can hear everything in my voice. I'm done. But like you even suggested, and even what got me more on board with doing it tonight was even like, okay, we're just gonna test. In my head, I was like, okay, look, we're just
Yeah.
testing. We're just that. And then we got super comfortable and all that. So I appreciate you even following up and all that. So you're a great friend, buddy. I just wanted to make sure you knew that.
Oh no, dude. Oh man, no. I just figured. I assumed because I know you, right? Like I was never like I never had an uncharitable interpretation of your behavior. It was never like I always gave you the benefit of
Oh,
the doubt, you know. So I figured,
oh yeah, yeah.
yeah, if
Oh
anything,
no,
you're in the same boat as I am. You're probably thinking the exact. So I'm just
oh
like,
no, no, no. I
just like I would if I were you, I would need someone to do this, and that's why I did that.
Oh yeah, no, 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 and I appreciate that
Mm.
greatly. And it's like I knew that you knew, but I still wanted to make it. I still wanted to publicly thank you. Is what I'm
Well, I
saying.
knew that you knew that
Just
I
say.
knew, and
All right, well, we'll definitely do this again, dude. We'll figure out another time that'll work. And we got to go back and listen to where we put like the 27 pins, and then I'm sure in that time we'll also think of like 18 more. We'll definitely make this. This is going to be the first. We'll call it a new series,
Ooh.
Into the Weeds.
Oh, that'd be really cool, man. When you start maybe you'll just start your own podcast network, have like a bunch of them on.
Oh my gosh, yeah. No, we'll put a pin
And
in
that's
that.
yet another pin. Oh, the pins.
Yet, oh the pins.
Into the weeds in
All right,
parentheses.
well,
Oh, the pins in parentheses. Yeah. It's like 8
we're gonna
parentheses.
get into like, oh my gosh, dude. Just the final tangent will go on. It'll be like Pokemon the first movie Mewtwo Strikes Back, where the Pokemon movie titles are always super confusing.
Was this the first one,
All
or is
right,
it Mewtwo
well,
Strikes Back? When did he strike the first time? When did he strike once?
they explain it all in the movie, but that's where you're like, wow, really? Are we sure this is the title we want? But they explain it in the movie.
What's with all this exposition?
All right,
Just
well,
make a prequel. Come on.
well, oh my gosh. Okay, okay. So they kind of did
Oh,
in the Japanese cut. The first 20 minutes were like his whole story about why he was striking back. Yeah, no, look up the Japanese cut. But okay, all right, that's where I'm at.
Mewtwo,
Again,
why he
into
struck
the weeds.
back.
All right, dear listener, thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Christian, can't wait to do this again.
Oh, the pins.
Hope you enjoyed, and God bless, my friends. Take care.